That's what I do it for. You know I got motion. Even though I be joking, get to the bag. Got me waking that host up. It's deep as the ocean. Been through the fire.
Why? Why is the first reaction is to attack the blacks? Why was that your first reaction? That's what I want to know. To whom may concern? Why was your first thought to attack the blacks? Why?
Back, white man, fight back! 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 White man, fight back!
We were not your enemy. We were not the people responsible for this. You were. People of your same complexion were. So I don't understand why, so much hostility is even still going towards the black community. You look online, it's like people are reacting more for people who don't have sympathy or empathy. You're reacting more to those people than the actual killer, than the actual people that did the crime. And I don't understand it. I see way too many Republicans or Charlie Kirk supporters spending so much energy addressing people who are non-empathetic and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to double talk. I made a video about people should have more empathy, which I think that they should. But I'm just saying, I don't think that should be the main focus of your energy. If you're a person on the right, if you're a person, and I'm independent, but I'm just saying, if you're a person on the right and you're looking for somebody to blame, your blame or your finger should not be pointing at the people who were not responsible more than the people who are responsible. That's all I'm saying. So, make it make sense. I just don't understand it. Celebrating themes that have pissed off, and I'm not going to even say celebrating. I'm going to say people talking as if they weren't necessarily sorry or they didn't feel no kind of way about Charlie Kirk's death because of some things that Charlie Kirk said. There's people, they're trying to argue that he wasn't racist, that his words were taken out of context, and that, black people are just overreacting or just trying to play the race card or just looking for something to claim racism, when I personally don't believe that that's the case at all. Do it happen? Damn right it happens. I see it all the time, and I call it out when I see it. I'm a person that says, no, this is not about race. Let's keep this about what it's about. Let's not make this about race. Let's not play the race card. That's me. I'm that guy. So I'm not going to sit here and now conveniently be quick to whip out the race card. No, I'm going to use it. I'm going to talk about it when it's applicable. And I think right now it's applicable, because if you listen to the words that Charlie Kirk said, then you can understand why people would take him as being a racist. Even if he wasn't, his words would suggest that he could be. And that's enough to make people feel attacked. That's enough to make people feel like, okay, well, I guess that's just the karma that he got because, he did stuff to piss people off. So, oh, well, But I think people get confused, man, on this whole racist work, because I don't think a lot of white people, even black people, know what it is to be racist or what racism is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the definition for you, just in case you don't know. I'm going to read the definition for you. And it says, prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. It also says the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. So you understand? So with those definitions, did Charlie Kirk say something to fit those definitions is the key. That's the question. Did he say something to truly fit the definition of a racist? Let me play a clip and see.
Point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you selfish sociopath. I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish, she's immature, and she is a shame to the country.
LeBron James is a self-interested, narcissistic,
And we know he's not very smart. LeBron James chronically cheats on his wife, obviously. He's an NBA player.
I'm gonna pause it right there just for a second to say this, because the key moment right here is I don't have a problem with what he said about Simone Biles. I thought it was pretty nasty, but it wasn't racist. Okay, we're gonna be pretty fair here. What he said about LeBron James, I want you to listen to when he says he's not very smart, because this is an ongoing theme that Charlie Kirk uses. You have to listen close to catch it. He oftentimes refers to black people as not intelligent, not smart, not qualified. And it's oftentimes used by the guys of DEI when he's making these cases. So people dismiss it because they think that he's talking about the fact that they're in a position because of DEI. But we're going to get to it. But calling LeBron James not smart and say that he cheats on his wife when there's absolutely no evidence, nothing, that he's cheating on his wife. For him to say that is just totally bogus, for one. But that's beside the point. We're going to stick to the race conversation. He said that he wasn't smart. I want you to take a key note of that part right there.
Because of DEI, it begs the question, when you see a black pilot, you wonder, you say, I hope they are qualified. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service.
I want to point out real quick the DEI point about the pilot, because I talked about this on the last episode, the panel discussion, but I want to talk about it again because it's so important. At the moment that he's boarding a plane, this is what he just told you, and he sees a black pilot, his first thought is this man qualified to drive this plane? Now, what I want to talk about right now is the fact that that's racism in that moment. In that moment when he's having that thought and he's feeling like, okay, this man's color, his color is making me feel uncomfortable. His color is, regardless if you use the fact that DEI is your excuse, because we all know that DEI doesn't get people hired based off of not being qualified. DEI does the exact opposite, especially when it comes to certain jobs like a pilot. You will not become a pilot and fly aircraft unless you have passed all of the tests and achieved the licenses that you need necessary to fly that plane. It is not a question of qualification when you're talking about DEI, even when you're talking about flying a plane. That's a bogus argument point and is not valid, because it's never been, in no way, shape, or form, ever said that a pilot has ever passed, has ever flew a plane and not been licensed by the people who license everybody and make sure that they train them the same way. I'm a bus driver, by the way, and I'm gonna tell you how I know this to be true. My profession is a bus driver. Regardless of your color, your race, your gender, if you have a CDL driver's license, you pass the test. They don't just give you CDL driver's license because you're light skinned, because you're dark skinned, because you're white, because it don't happen. It don't happen. If you don't pass that test, you will not be licensed. It's just that simple. So I want you to understand that when he makes the argument about the pilot, that's racist. That's racist. He's smart enough to know that DEI would not affect having a black pilot in that seat. But because you aren't intelligent enough, the people who are watching him are not intelligent enough, the impressionable minds of the students that he's talking to most of the time don't know enough. They're going to allow that to go over their heads and they're going to take his word for it. That is not an argument. It's a false argument. Okay? Let's continue.
Who's a moronic black woman. I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? It almost creates thought patterns that are not necessarily wholesome.
This is another example where he's, discrediting a woman and her intelligence. Listen to the theme: intelligence, being qualified, which would entail as well as, some form of intelligence or being, able mentally to do something. This is a common theme with Charlie Kirk that he's done. You have to listen past what he's saying, but some stuff is right in your face. And saying that the woman, because she had an attitude, he's wondering that did she get this job because of DEI? It's like that's his go-to line when he has an encounter that he doesn't like with a black person. DEI is being used It's being used as a tool to give a valid reason for his discrimination. And I want you to understand that we see through that. The people who are intelligent enough to understand, we see through that. If there is a small possibility that that's the case, we know that Charlie Kirk is smart enough to understand that that's not going to be something that's going to be the norm. That's not going to be something that you can use as a defense every time somebody pisses you off that's black, to say that it's DEI. You can't do that. That's a racist standpoint. That ideology you have of them being inferior or not being smart is what they just talked about in his definition. You fit the definition. He fit the definition. They talked about inferiority or being superior, intelligence. When you constantly hear somebody devalue or discredit somebody's intelligence, that's what they're saying to you. In so many words, they're saying to you, these people tend to not be smart. That's the white supremacist mindset, which ultimately it transfers into a racist mindset.
Black America was getting richer, they were getting stronger, and families were largely still put together before the Great Society, Voting Rights Act, and Civil Rights Act. 60 years later, Black America is in a worse position. I'm not saying it's because of the Civil Rights Act. I'm not saying it's because of the Voting Rights Act, but somewhere something went awry. I can name at least a dozen people more deserving in the 20th century of a federal holiday than MLK.
So he discredits MLK, as he's done many times. This is not the first interview where he's talked about MLK not being worthy of a holiday, MLK not being worthy of being celebrated. He can name a lot of people that were way more deserving. MLK did something at the time that was very necessary for Black people to be treated equally. This man, and here's the thing, here's the funny thing. MLK, he humbled himself in a way to whereas he used the way of trying to get white people to somewhat understand and sympathize by saying non-violence. How can you hate a man? How can you knock a man that only wanted to be treated equal and he didn't even want to fight you back? MLK is known for telling his constituents and people that were with him side by side on the streets, being hosed down and dog sicked on them. He's known for telling them not to fight back, not to hit back, turn the other cheek, is what he said. But yet you have a guy right here, 31-year-old guy, who doesn't understand the impact and the need for MLK. You know, what he sacrificed and what he is to Black people, the unawareness or the depreciation for, you know, our praise for MLK and what he's done, our appreciation as Black people. You know, did he care that he would possibly be, you know, saying some offensive things to Black people? Did he care? I don't think he cared. Did it look like he cared to you? And he knows what MLK is to Black people. He knows what MLK has done for Black people. He knows what life was like for Black people before MLK fought for the things that he fought for us to be able to have equal opportunities. So when we talk about is he racist or not, we got to bring this all to the table and really talk about this for real, for real. We got to stop playing around like as if it's something that's, oh, maybe so or not really. Nah, he is. He was racist, bro. He was racist. Let's continue.
The reason we talk about race so much is because we have a federal holiday to a guy that talked about race all the time. We celebrate the Civil Rights Act more than the American founding.
Well, the reason why he talked about race all the time, Mr. Charlie Kirk, you know, rest in peace. The reason why he talked about race all the time, because that was something that affected Black people every single day. It was something that needs to be discussed. He talked about it because that's the life that he lived, and he was held back from doing certain things. Okay, when you're a person that's being oppressed, when you're being told you can't drink at a certain water fountain, when you're being told that you can't work at a certain job, you got to sit in the back of the bus. When you can't get the basic things of life to have to enjoy life and be treated like a fair person, you have to say something, Mr. Charlie Kirk. And that's what he did. That's why he sacrificed himself to be able to help the entire race, Black race, you know, move forward in a way to whereas he eventually had to say that he feared that he burned his people into an abandoned building, because he realized that some people are so demonic, some people are so evil, that regardless to the fact of me fighting and trying to do all this stuff to get us to come into the same house with them, they're still going to want to find a way to take us out. They're still going to want to find a way to vilify us or to harm us. And it might make it easier for them to harm us, because now they can disguise their hatred for us. They can play like they like us. They can walk around like as if everything is cool, and behind our back they could be trying to stab us. Not all, of course, not all, never all. It was some great, good white people that helped us along the way. There's good white people right now that are willing to fight side by side with black people. And for those people, I salute you. I salute you. I appreciate you. You deserve credit, because you allowed yourself to not be hateful like the other people that are. So you deserve credit. This is not for you. When I talk about things that MLK fought against and talk about things that people have done to black people, that, you know, that why he had to try to prevent it from happening, I'm not talking about the ones that are doing something about it, that are not living their life in a racist type of way. I'm talking about the ones that still perpetuate these racist ideologies. I'm talking about those people. That's what I'm talking about. You understand? So, yeah, man, I'm going to play another clip, just in case you don't understand what I'm talking about.
And Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist.
Racist.
But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
Listen.
You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
You don't have the brain processing power, he said. Listen.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, and particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own.
You understand?
I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive. They think, as they kind of now reveal that I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies, that turned me into a bitter, resentful activist that hates white people, honestly, through our policies.
So as he makes a mockery and makes fun of this black woman and tries to say that she's not qualified to speak and she don't know what she's talking about. She's probably twice his age, by the way, old enough to be his mother. And Charlie Kirk sits there and tries to make the case that these women are not intelligent, that they're somehow they're narcissistic and they're stupid, they're dumb, or whatever the case may be. This is another indication that he has a superiority complex. He constantly talks about brain intelligence and brain power and their inability to think. Listen, when you understand the definition that I read about supremacy, about inferiority, he sees black people, especially black women, as being inferior to him. That's why he says it so much. That's why he constantly used those talking points. This is not coincidence. This is things that he said over and over and over again. You can't refute this. I gotta break it down and show it to y'all like this for you to understand what I'm saying. You can't refute that. The man doesn't have respect for black women or for black people in general's intelligence. He said it multiple ways, multiple times, you know, and regardless if he disagrees with Michelle Obama's views, Joy Reid's views. I don't agree with a lot of their views personally. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't agree with a lot of their views. Again, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a person that believes everything on the left is right. You know, I'm independent. Some things I'm liberal about, some things I'm conservative about. But no, I don't believe everything I don't like everything that they say either. But I would never try to act as if they're not intelligent. These women are very intelligent. They're very articulate and they're very wise. So Charlie Kirk continues, to do this. He uses these talking points, again, to discredit their intelligence. Is he a supremacist? Does he look at these people as inferior? Sure he does. Sure he does. You got to understand that. So when white people, even some white people I know personally, I see on my timeline, people I work with and stuff like that, they don't understand a lot of times why Black people have a resentment towards Charlie Kirk when they see these clips. They don't understand. They think that these things that he said are not harmful. That's the issue. Well, I'm telling you right now, it's harmful. It's harmful. And that's why Black people got two middle fingers up most of the time when you're talking about Charlie Kirk. And I'm sitting there left trying to say, y'all chill out, have a little empathy. But guess what? I understand if they don't, because bottom line is the negative energy that he put out is what he got back. That's exactly what he got back. I mean, the more people that you offend, it's ultimately going to mean the more people that's going to have it out for you. People that are going to hate you, people that's not going to like you. And even in my little small circle, my little platform that I do, the stuff that I speak on, I could understand that the more you talk or the more things that you have to say, the more things people have to judge you by. There's a lot of people are afraid to talk. So nobody's never going to know their opposing opinion. Some people are not bold enough to give an opposing opinion. So I get it. But in Charlie Kirk's, instance, it exposes his racist views. And for that reason, Black people and other people, not just Black people, other people as well that he offended, including Jews, homosexuals and things like that, other people that he talked about, that, they have an issue with him. And like I say, white people, some people, they look at him as a martyr. They see him as a harmless, perfect Christian man that only talked about Christian views, when it's not true. It's the furthest thing from the truth. He probably had some Christian views and he said some good stuff as well, but he said a lot of bad things. And you have to admit that. You have to see that. You can't keep playing stupid. You can't keep trying to defend everything that he said. It's not your job to defend what he said. It's not your job to try to make sense out of everything that he said. It's his job to articulate his words in a way to whereas he can be responsible for what he said. And he didn't even want empathy in his own words. He said he'd rather sympathy. I watched the whole clip, okay? So don't hit me with no, you didn't see the whole clip. He said he'd rather sympathy. Tomato, tomato, in my opinion. Tomato, tomato, okay. But anyway, ultimately, Charlie Kirk had a position and he stood on it. And unfortunately, he died on it. There's going to be reactions to the things that you say. You can say what you want to say, but there's going to be, a reaction to it. There's going to be consequences to it. That's just the truth of the matter,
That's what I do it for. I got motion. Even though I be joking, get to the bag. Got me waking at 4 something. It's deep as the ocean. Been through the fire. It's got